Would you as governor support the plan being promoted by Arizona Senators John McCain and Jeff Flake and the Gang of Eight, and why or why not? And this question goes to Al Melvin.
Great. Wow. Go out. We are here in Arizona called the American Border Patrol, owned by Glenn Spencer. He's got great affordable technology that we can use to really go a long way in sealing the border. But another thing that I want to mention to you is my background is international trade and transportation, especially shipping. I've been proposing a deep water port in Sonora, Mexico for about the last 8 years. It would take the largest, longest, widest ships in the world that would export our coal, our copper, concentrate, and potash. But this would create hundreds of thousands of jobs in that area as well as on our side of the border. Why would anyone want to or risk dying in our desert for a cheap job when they could have a great job at home? This is a free enterprise, private sector solution to a nasty international problem that won't go away. Thank you.
We have a wild card from Christine Jones.
The answer to your question is no, I don't support that plan, and here's why. Because it contains a form of amnesty and a path to citizenship for people who broke the law. Look, every candidate serves up rhetoric on immigration. We all care passionately about it, but here's what sets me apart. I spent 11 years growing a technology company. There are readily available technologies to solve this problem that we could implement today. But it's complex. It's about economics and education and homeland security and citizenship. It's complicated. But listen, simply put, if you want to be an American and you want to follow the path to citizenship, we already have one. We welcome you here, but you must do it our way. Enough with people breaking the law with no consequence, no amnesty. Please, let's put our foot down on that.
Next question. It is a well-known fact that President Obama did not win states that had voter ID laws enforced. What would you do to ensure that illegal aliens do not have access to the voting booth? And as governor, would you support driver's licenses for illegal aliens?
I promise this is not rigged. Christine Jones.
All right. It is complex. And let me just finish up what I was saying before. Look, we're not just compassionate people. We believe that we should treat people with humanity. But if you give a reward to a child who was born here, whose parents immigrated illegally, you are rewarding their bad behavior. It incentivizes more people to do it in the future. We made this colossal mistake in the 80s. We have twice as many people here now. It's hard, but we must put our foot down on this. We have to solve this problem. And the reason politicians don't want to do it is because it's politically expedient. Republicans can argue about one thing and Democrats can argue about another, and as long as we don't solve it, everybody has something to talk about and they get reelected. No. We need people who are serious and don't politicize these issues. This is about homeland security. This is more than just humans, men and women, walking across some imaginary line on a map. This is complicated, but it can be solved if we really want to solve it. But if you want to be an American, you want to drive, you want to have citizenship, you want to vote, get on board. We welcome you. We are a nation of immigrants. Most of us have ancestors that immigrated here successfully by following the law. We need them, they contribute, but it must be done with consequence for breaking the law.
We have a wild card. We have a wild card from Ken Bennett.
As Secretary of State, you may know that I'm the Chief Elections Official in the state of Arizona. Now, we rely very heavily, though, on a lot of folks at the county levels to make our elections work. But this is an area where I and my office have worked diligently during the 4 years I've been your Secretary of State to make sure two things: that the voters' decision in 2004 was respected that you have to show proof of citizenship in order to register to vote, and you have to show ID at the polls in order to cast your ballot. In about 2 weeks, it looks like I'm going to be in Kansas to appeal a decision by the Federal Election Assistance Commission. Total contradiction of terms. But anyway, they have told Arizona that if a voter registers using a state form, we can require them to show proof of citizenship. But if they register to vote using a federal form that they came up with, we can't. That is craziness, and we're going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to.
If elected governor, what program or plan will you introduce to increase the quality of our K-12 public school system? What are your thoughts on the Common Core curriculum? This question goes to Ken Bennett.
Sorry. Well, first of all, the amount that we spend on education is not as important as how we spend it. And I believe that we need to make sure that our dollars are getting in the classroom, they're getting to our teachers. When I was chairman of the Senate Education Committee, and the average teacher in the state was making about $34,000, and class sizes were starting to balloon up around 26, 27, and people said that was about 5 or 6 students too much. I suggested what we call priority-based budgeting. Let's take all the money in the K-12 school system and take the first 35 or 40% of it and put it in a special fund that can only be used for teacher salaries. If we would have done that at that time, with just 40% of the money that was spent every year in K-12, there would have been enough money in that priority #1 fund to give every teacher in the state a $10,000 a year raise when they were making 34. That would have been huge. There still would have been enough money left over in the fund to hire enough new teachers to reduce the class sizes from 26 or 7 to about 21 or 2. And it was fought by the teachers' unions and other groups that didn't want to upset the apple cart as to why the money is spent and all of those things. So, education, if you've seen the Kleenex boxes that I do, by the time you add the state, local, and federal money, it's $10 billion a year, and it's how we spend it, not how much we spend it.
Next question. In November of 2013, it was discovered that there were over 6,500 reports of child abuse and neglect that were not investigated by the APS, the Arizona Child Protective Services. Governor Brewer has said that Arizona's child welfare system is broken. As governor, what steps would you take to fix this horrific problem, and how would you pay for it?
This question goes to Alice Lukasik.
Family dynamics that include violence and include hardships. I think there's different perspectives that can be taken, that there's an indication of a problem. It is not necessarily a problem between the man and the woman, that it can very well be related to mental health issues or criminal activity. There's a problem that is not involved in that is not involve the whole family, but some aspect of the family. Raising awareness, addressing if there's a problem in the home and you take a person out for 48 hours, it aggravates the problem. So we have to look at realistically at finding whether it's criminal activity or if it's mental illness, and oftentimes it's both, that result in hostility towards children. It's unnatural to be hostile, or the economic needs, which incentives for local and regional development is far more beneficial, far more lasting than any corporation coming in here with high-paying jobs. People need to have security. Corporations have a life of 20 years, and regional, local development, and looking at these problems realistically that are in the home.
We have a wild card by Doug Ducey.
Let's remember what we're talking about here. Child Protective Services. And I'll apply a lesson that I learned in the private sector. When faced with a failing organization, fire the leadership and retrain the staff. in a Ducey administration, Arizona will be the safest place in the nation for our children. Thank you.
This week is National School Choice Week. Across the United States, advocates of school choice are celebrating the effort to give parents and students the opportunity to attend a school of their choice. What is your position on school choice, and how will you as governor address this issue? Doug Ducey.
Choice, competition, and quality. These are the things that have set our free enterprise system and made it the envy of the entire world. The greatest ideas, companies, and innovation come from our country because of this model. It's only in education and healthcare that the government has stifled any new idea, anything that drives up quality and drives down cost. We have examples in our state of excellent schools, and more often than not, they are our charter schools. We have the #1 high school in the nation in the state of Arizona. We have high schools in the top 5 in the nation in the state of Arizona. They have been a result of choice and competition. We know how to educate a child in this state. It's an excellent teacher in a classroom and having that classroom properly funded. We need to reward our teachers, incent our teachers, honor our teachers, make sure we have better teachers in more classrooms, and we need to change our funding formula. It's broken. It funds districts versus schools. There's duplication and replication in food service, transportation, and custodial. I'll get rid of all of that like any business person would. I'll put the money in the classroom. We'll put committed principals as leaders in the schools, and we'll have the best improving education system in the country.
Next question. What are the most crucial issues facing Arizona's public universities, and how would you address these issues?
Al Melvin.
I'm a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, one of the 5 federal academies along with West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, and Coast Guard. Also went to the Naval War College, got my MBA in Glendale at Thunderbird, the world's #1 graduate school for international business. We know that a college education is critical for those who gravitate in that direction. It's tragic that that the student loan debt in America exceeds the total credit card debt. It's staggering to think about it, that our youth are being hurt in that way. I think there are several things that we need to do. One, we need to use more adjunct lecturers. One of the real strengths of Arizona is we've got retired PhDs, chief executive officers, military officers, diplomats, who could be teaching at the college level as adjuncts. But before I went to the Senate, I taught at the University of Phoenix, University of Arizona, and Western International University. We have to make it more affordable, and this is one way to do it, and do it fast. We also want to encourage other universities like Grand Canyon University. Thank you.
Republican Party unity is critical to one of you winning in November. Ronald Reagan was able to accomplish this on a national level. What about your platform will engage and bring together all Republicans while still attracting independents? Will you endorse the Republican winner of the primary and publicly call for your supporters to do likewise? Doug Ducey.
You know, my background as a franchisor, I think, has prepared me for what I want to be. I think the governor is the de facto leader of the Republican Party. And when you're dealing with franchisees, they're not like employees where you can just tell them what to do. They put up their money for your idea. So you have to have the better idea, and you have to bring them together, and you have to persuade them as to what is the right direction. I want to give our party purpose and direction. You know, I don't expect 100% of the people to be on the same page, but I think when you move forward with an idea, it should be the best idea, and it should emanate from our principles. You see a lot of those companies that put out there at participating locations only. We didn't have to do that at Cold Stone because we had all 1,440 stores going in this same direction. Another thing I'll tell you is when we were selling ice cream, forgive me, but independents and Democrats like ice cream too. So we had to message to a broad audience. I think we have a message that when it's properly presented, you have a lot of people in any room shaking their head saying, right, that's the direction I want to go. That grows the free market economy. That improves schools. That puts people in charge of their own choices and their own life. That's the way I'll communicate as leader of the Republican Party of Arizona, and it will grow our party. It will be a party of addition.
We often witness...
How much does a wild card cost?
Is that like buying a ballot?
We should have more wild cards. Okay, next question. We often witness governors across our country willing to give away state autonomy to obtain federal funds. At what point would you refuse federal dollars to preserve the rights of every Arizonan?
Christine Jones.
What a great question. First time we've ever heard that. Thank you. The thing that I hear when I meet with a lot of the state legislators is they're frustrated because they feel like they're bound to a certain behavior because if they don't do it, they'll lose federal funding. And to Secretary Bennett's point, I think he and I very much agree on this. The budget management really is about how do you spend the money. We spend too much money in this state. There is a lot of duplication. And in fact, when you break it down to what is federal money and what is state money, you'll find that a very small percentage of most of the programs that are valuable, like education, a very small percentage comes from the federal government. And I find it odd that the federal government only gives us, say, 10% of the education budget, and yet they want 100% of the control. Here's what you have to do. You have to be willing to really noodle through, and I'm a CPA, okay, I'll admit it, I geek out on the budget a little bit. You have to be willing to noodle through and find the duplications, pick up your 10%, take your dollar that goes into the appropriations when only 55 cents comes out to the classroom and say we need to get it up to 60, 61, 62, and tell the federal government to take their 10% and shove it up there, you know what?
What is your position on the decade-long practice of diverting gas tax money to the state Department of Public Safety away from HERF, the Highway User Revenue Fund? These funds are intended for local communities to build and maintain their roads. Will you support ending this $119 million annual diversion to DPS? Scott Smith.
Oh boy, do I know about this. I think, I get it, the state has financial issues. Local cities and communities serve you and me. And they have huge challenges. And if you didn't know, the HERF, and that's a nice little bureaucratic thing, is for highway user funds. And it's your gas tax, your vehicle registration, those things that are meant to really pay for things that you use, the roads, the streets. It's especially important in rural and smaller communities because in many of those, that is their budget for keeping your streets maintained and building streets. And the legislature, to meet budgetary problems, diverted well over $100 million. And over the last few years, it's pushing now $500 million. So when you drive down your streets and you hit that pothole that can't be fixed, if you find that that bridge can't be repaired, it may be, and there's a good chance it's because those monies were diverted by the state legislature. I believe that monies that are meant to go to local communities should go to local communities. Local communities not only depend on these, but these are your monies that are supposed to come back. I would not only, as governor, one of the first things I would do is I would sign an order which says that PERF is not going to be diverted, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not ever. It'll be our policy that will balance the budget with the monies we have, and your gas taxes and what you pay for your vehicle will go to fix the streets that you drive on, because that's what they were meant for.
If you were the current governor, would you have accepted the recent Medicaid expansion from the federal government and create the state healthcare exchange program, and why or why not?
Ken Bennett.
I would not have supported the bill that was signed by the governor for a variety of reasons. First of all, until we figure out how to get people off of access, we should not be putting 300,000 or 400,000 more on access. Now, the federal government made it almost impossible to say no to the dollars, because normally Medicaid and access funds are on a 2-to-1 match. For every $1 the state spends, they provide 2. This time they made it a 10-to-1 match. And the state just had to come up with $150 million, and the feds would provide $1.5 billion. Now, if they were going to try to leverage us and extort us into doing that, I think we needed to take the opportunity to renegotiate with them how the dollars work in the other billions and billions of dollars that goes through access and Medicaid. We're talking, the whole Medicaid expansion was related to initially about 140,000 people in the 7th category of access, which eventually dwindled down to about 65 or 70,000. There's another 1.2 million other Arizonans on access, and there are way too many restrictions from the federal government as to how we cannot control those dollars. So we've got the tail wagging the dog here, and instead of signing the bill, we should have driven a hard bargain with the federal government to figure out how to spend those other dollars, those other 90% of the dollars, much more efficiently, and we wouldn't have been over a barrel as to almost having to accept the $1.5 billion that they were trying to give us. So I would not have signed, and I don't think we should divide the Republican caucuses in the legislature in that way either, but I would not have signed the bill that passed.
Our final question. Excluding our own governor, Janice K. Brewer, which current governor do you admire most and why? And it's asked Alice Lukasik.
My mind goes back to when Arizona was so young and innocent and ran on inspiration, agriculture, and ingenuity, which would be Governor Goldwater.
Excuse me, Alice, it's current governor.
Current governor.
Thank you.
Governor. I have a gentleman of Louisiana is an outstanding man who is striving to hold together a difficult situation and in very difficult circumstances, after the challenges of environmental damage from the hurricane, what it did to his economy, the shifts of population, and for him to continue to be holding on and providing for his state is very admirable.
We have a wild card. Doug Ducey.
I think it's Scott Walker of Wisconsin. Is a great example of a conservative who can apply our principles and in a blue, democratic state, win people over and change a state for the better. That's really hard to do in Wisconsin, where they've been Democrat for decades and decades. I think that type of leadership and communication skills in a state from Arizona can put us in a position where we lead and where we're a model state for the nation on how to apply conservative principles.
I'm a big fan of Governor Walker's because I think he has the most incredible first name ever. And anyone named Scott can't be half bad, okay? Can we agree on that? Okay. I have a few out there, all named Scott, by the way. But I think you need to add to that, and something which I think is nationally we're missing the boat on. You've got John Kasich in Ohio. You've got Governor Haskell in Tennessee. Governors who have applied conservative principles. Well, the other side thinks they are criminal, unfortunately. Conservative principles, and guess what? They're popular across the board because people want things done. They want a government, and they deserve a government that is efficient, but is effective and accountable. And these governors, Republican governors around the country, are showing the way things that this can happen. This is our party's greatest strength. Governors and mayors who cross the lines for independents, Democrats. Our mayor, Richard Berry in Albuquerque, just got elected in Albuquerque with 80% of the vote, a Republican, by governing based on conservative principles. It works when things happen, things get done.
Thank you. Our first one is Al Melvin.
Thank you very much again for the club for organizing this and everyone turning out. One thought I want to leave with you is I very much, from my heart and soul, want to be the Tea Party candidate in this election. I'm a member of the Tea Party. The Tea Party saved the country in 2010 when we took the U.S. House, and the Tea Party will save the country again when we keep the House, take the Senate, and get good conservative governors like myself elected across the country. So there's a lot of apathy out and about, but the flame of liberty and freedom is alive there. It's alive in this room. I know we will all pull together to make our state the most prosperous state in the nation through the maximum number of private sector jobs. I read recently that the best social program known to man or woman is a private sector job. It beats food stamps, unemployment, insurance, benefits, on and on. A good example of what's happening in Arizona is one of my previous employers, American President Lines, over 100 years old company, moved to Scottsdale about 5 years ago from Oakland, California. They now operate more ocean-going ships, over 200 out of Scottsdale, than they ever did out of Oakland, California. Arizona can be the banking, insurance, and maritime capital of the West Coast, and I'm bound and determined to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming today, and I want to remind us all, as you know, the primary is held on August 26th. August 27th is actually more important in some respects than August 26th, because whoever wins on August 26th, we need to come together and support that candidate to win the general election. About 8 years ago, we had a contentious primary. 3 good people running for governor. When one won, the other 2 took a while to coalesce around them, and we ended up giving the governor's office to Janet Napolitano. We cannot do that again. So let's remember August 27th, and it's my commitment that whoever wins up here, I will be there to support him. Now, I'm going to try to do everything I can to make sure that I'm the one they're supporting. But as I mentioned earlier, I said 3 things. A governor needs to understand how private business works, local government, and state government. Local government for the purpose of, just as we heard, diverting HERF funds. We will all sit here and tell you, we won't divert HERF funds. But when I was president of the Senate, and I got down there, I realized that we were. I said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to cut the percentage of state shared revenues that goes to the cities. The other thing is, some of us have been CEOs in businesses. But when you're working with the legislature, it's a whole new ballgame. When you're the CEO of a company, you get to say, we're going to do ABC. When you're the governor or Senate president, you say, we want to do ABC, and there's 89 other people that say, I want to do XYZ and HIJ, and on and on and on. That is a talent that should not be learned on the job, and I can bring that to you. The last thing is we've got to be bold, and I'll just close with this analogy. If I'd been governor when they closed the Grand Canyon, I would have been up there with the DPS and the National Guard and some bolt cutters the next morning. We would have opened the park, and it would have been a state park.
Our next closing will come from Mayor Scott Smith.
Thank you. And you know, Ken, on August 27th, I will gladly accept your support. Thank you. With open arms. You know, I'm going to end where I began. Once again, thinking about Scarlett, my 9-year-old granddaughter. That's what drove me to get involved. That's what drove me to serve. The next 3 to 5 years in this state are critical because decisions will be made, policies will be enacted that literally will affect this state for the next generation. We need leadership who doesn't learn on the job, but who has been there, who's done it. Yes, it is different being CEO in business and being CEO in government. I know, I've done it. I know what it's like to work with the city council, but also with the voters. In Mesa, we've passed overwhelmingly 2-to-1 things that, yes, I have supported. It takes a lot to get voters to buy into what you are proposing, to take the leadership and the vision that you've done. I've succeeded. I've succeeded at the national level to get a majority non-Republican mayors to elect you as their president means you know how to build bridges, means you know how to lay out a vision, means you know how to bring people together and to get things done. I believe for all our children and all our grandchildren's sake, Arizona wants a governor that has proven that he can get things done. I think the time is right, and I think my granddaughter and your granddaughter, little Scarlett or Lisa or Johnny or whoever it is, will be greatly satisfied if we, as Republicans who come together, elect somebody who will get it done, and will set the stage for that generation. I just happen to believe I'm the one that can do it. Thank you very much for having us here.
Doug Ducey?
I want to start out by saying thank you to the Republican women of Prescott and to all of you in Yavapai County. I entered public life 4 years ago, and everybody talks about how brutal Republican politics are. But I want to tell you, when I've come up here over the last 4 years and when I was campaigning for treasurer, you've always made me feel welcome with a warm reception, and for that I'm very grateful. I talked about Cold Stone Creamery, and I used to tell my leadership team that I didn't need to spend a lot of time at the headquarters office to know how we were doing. If I got out into the stores and I talked to the owners and the crew members and the customers, I would know exactly how everyone was doing back at the headquarters office. Well, I want you to know, I don't think you get a lot smarter at the headquarters office of government, the state capitol. So I like getting out into the counties. And you've seen me, I'm not a stranger here, you've seen me over the last 4 years, and I'll be here over the next 4 years. I think you get smarter talking to the people that are making it happen on the street, the people that are working in the real economy. And that's what I'll do as your governor. Great states have great cities, multiple, they have great counties. And there's 15 counties in this state, and I'm well aware of that. I'm going to work hard to earn your support. I want you to look at my record, not only in terms of my wonderful wife Angela and our 3 boys, but my company Cold Stone Creamery, what I did to stand up and stop Proposition 204, keep a temporary tax temporary. If you want to tell what somebody's going to do going forward, look at what they've done going backwards. I know I'm blessed to be in front of you, talking about a loving family, a successful business, and that I want to be your governor. But I think you're blessed to be in this room. You're the leaders, the influencers, and the decision makers for our party. And if you like what I'm talking about and where I want to take our state, I need your help, and I'm asking for your support. DougDucey.com, Doug Ducey on Facebook, and @Doug Ducey on Twitter. Thank you for having me.
Our next closing will come from Allison Cossack.
So early on, I was offered, in college, I was offered an internship at the state capitol. I wasn't ready for the commitment, and so I declined it. I went and saw the world instead. Again, in my community, once I found the time after my child had grown to an age that didn't require as much responsibility, I tried functioning in government at the city level. And I found it really difficult. I wasn't ready for it then. I can recognize contradictions. I recognize to ask for cons when there's pros being offered. I understand the nature of Arizona. I understand its potential. I understand the potential to take advantage of it. I'm an individual that can stand up to anyone here and discuss the pros and cons of anything, the right and wrong. I understand Constitution, and without application of Constitution, we're all in trouble. We have to respect biology. Of all things done here in this state, we have to respect biology. Industry, technology, don't run on biology. We do. And to come together as individuals, the Constitution wanted to support being successful human beings. It didn't matter, and provided and protected by a sound, limited government. Those are that's what I'm capable of doing, and that's what I'm capable of doing for the constituency of Arizona, for the wild of Arizona, for the life of Arizona. Thank you.
Christine Jones.
Thank you so much, Billy. Excellent job putting this together. And I keep hearing from a women's group in Texas that they're the largest Republican women's group in the country. I might just make it my singular mission to go out and get you to 400 so I can go back to those people in Texas and say, not on my watch. Okay? So thanks for having us, and thanks for putting this together. It really is an honor to be here. And I agree with Doug and Scott and Ken and so many of the cast of thousands that are in the Republican primary when they say it is the Republican way to discuss issues, to have an opinion, and to have an open discourse and a civil discourse, and then to pick the person with whom you best relate. It is about our freedom, and I am honored to be here to talk about Arizona as the brightest star in the union. You know, I was sitting down with the mayor of Prescott recently, and he said, you know, Christine, I'm from Texas, and when you're from Texas, you learn from little up to be proud that you're from Texas. And I thought, you know what, he's right. Have you ever been in Europe and you met somebody from Texas and you ask them where they're from? They don't say, I'm from the United States. They say, I'm from Texas. And I think it's time for us to have a little bit of that pride in Arizona. To make Arizona the brightest star, to take the issues that are local issues that should be national issues that we should be leading on, whether it's border security or immigration or economic development or excellence in education, all of those things that we can lead on, we can and should do that. Now, I reserved my wild card and my extra 45 seconds intentionally for this closing because I noticed when I came up here that you guys made the extremely astute decision to put domain names on the name tags of the people on the panel. And I looked up those domain names, and I'm happy to say, and I thank you very much, that each of my fellow candidates is a GoDaddy.com customer. And we appreciate the business. Now, I had a great success at GoDaddy, but it's really important for you to know that I personally come from nothing. I had two wonderful parents, but we didn't have much. What I did have was a wonderful aunt. Her name was Anne, my mom's sister. She told me about education. She said, Christine, education is the great equalizer. And she was right. If we can educate kids, and we can contribute a great education to economic development, and we can stand firm to enforce the rules that are already on the books, we can make Arizona the brightest star. I invite you to help me do that. Together we can. I am Christine Jones. I am running for governor. I ask for your support. Thank you very much for having us today.